Esteemed organizers of the Congress Mind and Brain, dear participants, I'm very happy to be able to share with you the presentation Calming the Mind during Challenging Circumstances. It is my intention with this presentation to make sure you get a clear, condensed, and most up-to-date understanding on how reasoning and practices based on contemplative science can be highly beneficial for calming the mind during all kinds of negative, unwanted, challenging circumstances. Especially in the context of medical profession, because during the last 2 years, humanity faced global pandemic, and that caused many types of sufferings for people all around the world, like experiencing serious illness with various post-COVID symptoms, then untimely death of loved ones, ongoing war in Ukraine, all unfavorable social economic consequences, specific personal and family problems. And at the same time, and all those unfortunate life events and conditions have profound negative impact on mental health worldwide. And for medical professionals, that means more burden and increased levels of distress. And even before year 2020, studies showed high prevalence of empathic distress or burnout syndrome among physicians and all health workers and health professionals. Recently, Medscape.com published Physician Burnout Depression Report 2022 on a sample of 13,000 physicians in the USA, and it was done for the year 2021. And among the results, the report shows that burnout prevalence is up to 60% among physicians. And among consequences of it are negative effects on personal life of the physicians and negative effects on patient relationships. And among ways of coping with burnout, most of what is prevalent are exercise, isolation from others, and sleep, and spending time with family and friends. And at work, practices to alleviate burnout at work are stated. There are meditation, stress reduction techniques, reducing work hours, change work settings. So those are practices to alleviate burnout. And despite the fact that burnout and distress is a serious issue among healthcare professionals, in this report, physicians, report shows that more than half of medical institutions do not offer programs for stress reduction. And with this presentation, we will analyze two possible ways of facing unfavorable circumstances. One is based on affective resonance, and another is based on cognitive resonance. So first way of facing unfavorable circumstances is based on affective resonance. And affective resonance is our capacity to share or become effectively aroused by others' emotions. And if it's repeatedly experienced, it may lead to empathic distress or burnout. And one of the common ways of coping with it is emotionally distancing from others' suffering. And even though it may sound logical, this approach may sound logical, it is not very successful in the long run, because one of the reasons which prevent it from being successful is human system of mirror neurons, which is our subjective neurological basis of empathy. So if this approach of emotional distancing from others' suffering is presented with a metaphor, it can be presented with a metaphor of running behind the butterflies with a net trying to catch them, where butterflies present our mental well-being. This approach is quite exhausting and unstable because butterflies, even if we catch them with the net, they do not want to stay in the net. So this approach involves a lot of activity, a lot of running, and not much rest or inner peace. Even though unstable and not very effective, most of the physicians in the US are using isolation techniques to cope with burnout, like exercise, which mostly done alone, or isolating from others, or sleeping. So those are isolation techniques. But the more one tries to distance from the pains and sufferings of others and the environment, the more exhausted and distressed one becomes. But there is another way to enjoy the company of wonderful butterflies, and that is to plant the seeds of beautiful flowers and then take care of those seeds until they flourish into beautiful flowers. Because if the flowers are beautiful, butterflies will become automatically attracted to those flowers, and we will enjoy the company of the butterflies without the need to chase them with a net. this approach is much more reliable and it's much more stable with regard to experiencing our own mental well-being. And this is a metaphor for the approach of cognitive resonance. And cognitive resonance represents emotional distancing paradigm shift, because cognitive resonance promotes an approach where two concepts, like care for one's own health and well-being and the care for health and well-being of our patients and our co-workers and family members, those two concepts are not contradictory, but they are empowering, they're reinforcing one another. So therefore, there is no need to emotionally distance from the suffering, but face it with open heart and courageous attitude. And that is approach based on contemplative science. And contemplative science is the bridge between empirical study of the science of consciousness and the subjective experiential study of consciousness through contemplation. And contemplative science introduces first-person methodology of investigating one's own mind through contemplative techniques of organized, detailed system of training the attention and cultivation of compassion and other positive or virtuous states of mind. First, let us define negative and positive mental states. Negative mental states, once they're produced, their previously calm mind becomes disturbed, agitated, excited, or tense. It causes hard breathing, nervous sweating, insomnia, uneasiness of body, etc. It starts negative causal sequence because actions of body and speech that follow that state produce hardship for self and others. As opposed to that, positive mental states are benevolent states which, once produced, become causes of inner peace, self-confidence amidst challenges, mental stability, and resilience. It causes optimal breathing, numerous benefits for the body, good night's sleep, etc. It starts positive causal sequence because actions of body and speech that follow that state produce well-being for self and others. And among positive mental states, love and compassion are the most powerful ones. Therefore, there are two main practices based on contemplative science. First of all, it is calming the mind, and then training the mind in love and compassion for self and others. And we calm the mind through specific breathing techniques and mindfulness practices. But even though the mind is calm at the present moment, this calm mind has the ability to become disturbed or agitated again. So to eliminate this option, we expand the mind with virtues. And among virtues, we said love and compassion are the most powerful ones. So to train the mind in love and compassion, first of all, we have to identify the disadvantages of negative mental states from our personal experience. And then we recognize the advantages of positive mental states. And then we familiarize with those positive mental states, known as virtues. And since positive and negative mental states cannot coexist, by developing more and more positive ones, negative ones will decrease in strength. So the process of training the mind in love and compassion has two stages. First stage is to develop compassion for self. And the second stage is to develop compassion for others. And when we develop compassion for self, there are three parts of it. So first part is to identify at the beginning our own deep aspiration to experience happiness and avoid suffering from our own personal experience. And then we identify how important that is for us. And then in the third step, we work to accomplish it. How can we work the best, in the best way to accomplish it? And then through this, we utilize our own intelligence to understand cause and effect relationship between our thoughts, words, actions, and its consequences. So we recognize what to avoid and what to apply based on our own experience. So that's how we develop compassion for self. And then we expand this training of compassion further by applying the same reasoning which we applied for self on others, by thinking, just like me, others want happiness. Just like me, others want to be free from suffering. And in the first step, we identified their deep aspiration to experience happiness and avoid suffering. And then in the second step, we identify how important that is for them. And then in third step, we work to accomplish it for them by utilizing our own intelligence to understand cause and effect relationship between genuine care for others and our own mental well-being. So developing more and more our inborn seed of compassion and expanding it and opening ourselves towards others, we move focus from self towards genuine care for others. And that is the training in compassion for others. And then through training in love and compassion, the more suffering one faces, the more courage, stability, and inner peace that person feels. So the way of cognitive resonance is a way of cultivating the seeds of compassionate thoughts towards self and others in our mind. Those are the seeds of wonderful flowers which will blossom, and they will attract the butterflies of mental well-being into our life. And that is amazingly described by simple yet profound calligraphy from famous Zen Buddhist master, unfortunately late Zen Buddhist master Thich Nhat Hanh. Peace in myself, peace in the world. And that's why training in compassion in medicine is an invaluable tool, because healthcare professionals do not influence only patients. But if patient is taken care for with genuine care, it will profoundly and positively impact patients, family, and friends. Following that logic, healthcare professionals' effect multiplies and positively influences the whole humanity. And expanding compassion through contemplation and familiarization is a very powerful antidote for empathic distress and burnout. And it is also a sign of our universal responsibility for the welfare and benefit of all humanity. And scientific research of love and compassion training is done by many famous medical and academic institutions, as well as there are many dialogues about mind and life, which are organized by Mind and Life Institute as conversations between leading thinkers and spiritual leaders, such as His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And those dialogues are organized by Mind and Life Institute, which is established in 1991, and it brings science and contemplative wisdom together to better understand the mind and create positive change in the world. And there is a serious research which is made at Harvard Medical School by Dr. Sara Lazar, and her most notable research observes changes in the brain, also known as neuroplasticity, in long-term meditators under MRI, which demonstrates the impact of meditation on structures in the brain, including amygdala, a region in the brain known to play an important role in anxiety and stress. And her amazing brain scans show meditation can actually change the size of key regions of our brain, improving our memory and making us more empathetic, compassionate, and resilient under stress, also slowing or even preventing the normal aging. And inspired by my studies of Tibetan neuroscience, I developed NAM, or neuroplasticity activation modeling, emotional hygiene technology, which is an elegant model with practical methods for transforming negative states of mind and cultivating inner peace and well-being for self and others. And NAM Emotional Hygiene is available through presentations from year 2017, and it was presented to a few hundred participants up until now. And during COVID pandemics, we had a support group, and it's still ongoing, a support group in Rijeka, Croatia, with meetings on a regular basis. And it is also available online on a YouTube channel where complete methodology is presented of NAM Emotional Hygiene on a channel NAM Emotivna Higiena. It's in Croatian language. And even though NAM Emotional Hygiene was presented to almost relevant medical and scientific institutions in Rijeka, which is the area where I live, and from 2017 it has been regularly presented on Neuropsychiatric Congress Mind and Brain, for the time being no institution expressed interest to cooperate. That's why I'm deeply grateful to Professor Vida de Marin for her relentless support, inspiration, guidance, and opportunity to present my work and this respectable International Neuropsychiatric Congress. And it is my wish that my work with NAM Emotional Hygiene serves as a spur or as an impulse to inspire for action those with much more resources to make further research, to embrace and utilize contemplative science and practices for the benefit of all. Thank you.